Welcome back. Another week, another week. I don't know about y'all and where you are in the world. I know some of you are all over the world, literally, which still just makes me so excited and happy to know. People in South Africa and Germany, all over the place. I love it. So welcome back to Let's Discuss with Meg. I am so excited to have you all. I often forget, so I'm going to do it right now so I don't forget, so I don't get told to do it, because producing is not necessarily my strongest suit. I'm a mental health professional, but please make sure, if you have not already, to subscribe on all of your favorite listening streaming devices. This is a terrible way to start a podcast, but I'm thinking about it, so I'm going to do it. ADHD. 5-star reviews, comments are always helpful. Reviews, I love it. So I hate to ask, but I know a lot of you have told me how much you enjoy spending this time. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, it really helps boost the ratings and keeps us going. So let's move off of that, though. That's not why you're here. I want to talk today about anger. So I feel like a lot of us are doing a little better at being mindful and aware, being responsive, not reactionary, right? We're getting better, but we're also still kind of decoding what anger is and what it means to us. So I thought, let's just spend some time and really dig into it and really get into the root of it so that we can know what we're talking about and we can make good choices. So I have learned about this in school, and I maintain, I think it makes sense. Anger is a secondary emotion. You are angry because you feel angry as a result of, right? So I can't think of an example of a time that I was just angry to be angry. I was angry because my feelings were hurt. I was angry because I felt left out. I was angry because I felt frustrated or ignored, right? So the initial emotion, or the emotion you probably feel first, is anger, but it's based on another emotion: feeling hurt, feeling afraid, feeling sad. If you're feeling very sad, sometimes you act out negatively. My 3-year-old, bless him, was angry and was sad because his dad and I had left his room for bedtime. And usually he does pretty well. Y'all remember Jensine? She's our sleep trainer extraordinaire. Go back to the sleep episode if you haven't heard it. It's wonderful. Follow her at Baby O and I on Instagram. And he's done so well. And then sometimes he does not do well because he's a human. He's a tiny little human with real emotions and real thoughts and feelings. So sometimes we don't have the best bedtimes. And one of those times he was sad because you and Daddy left me. And he was sad. So he went and got his books off his bookshelf in his room and threw them at the door. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but like sometimes you just have to. You have to. I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing at the situation. I definitely would never laugh at him. And it breaks my little heart to ever have my children be sad. So I'm not laughing at that, but just really, really upset. And he was talking about it the next morning, even like, I was sad because you all left. So we talked about that and processed that. But anger, throwing books at the door, is an anger response because he's sad. See, good example, secondary emotion. So I don't know. I'm curious. What do you all think? Send me some DMs. Do you think anger is a secondary emotion? Can you be angry just for the sake of being angry? Give me some examples. I will use them in the next sessions in my own practice. But for me, yeah, I just kind of visualize anger as a response to something else. So I think something that's helpful for us is when we recognize, like, does anger explode? Does it just come on? Are you 0 to 100 in 0.5 seconds? I think, again, typically speaking, there's something underlying, right? Something is building, something has happened. It may not be, I started out here and over the course of 10 minutes, I ramped up. It could be over the course of days, weeks, months, things have happened. And something in that moment was the tipping point for me. But it might feel like it comes out of nowhere, but it really rarely that is the case, right? Certainly something can happen that's new news. A lot of things have been happening in the news. And you can have an anger response to that. And nothing had happened previously. So certainly there are cases. But I mean, generally speaking, on the things that cause us anger in our daily is something that kind of ramps up. It builds slowly. When we're not being intentional, we're not being mindful, we're not necessarily aware that it's happening. So it's building, you're building it up. That pressure cooker is getting more and more intense. but we're not even necessarily aware of it because we're not paying attention. So we got to think of times where an anger might catch you by surprise, right? And get you thinking, oh my gosh, this came out of nowhere. But we're talking about kind of some of those warning signs, right? So what are some warning signs? I don't know if any of you are huge nerds like I am. I'm a white chick from the 90s. So Friends, Red Ross, anybody? For those of you who know that expression in season 4, there you go. For those of you who don't, Red Ross, when your mind goes blank, when you're like, everything goes red and you don't even really know what's going on, Red Ross. Anyway, sometimes our hands start shaking, face turns red, sweating. I gave you the example of my son throwing things, insults, clenching your fist is one. We talk about that, like, you recognize like, oh my gosh, your stomach, you might feel sick to your stomach. Raising your voice, being argumentative, pacing, headaches. I get stress headaches for sure. Not a lot anymore because I have a new job that I really enjoy, but work stressors have definitely, and even, I will admit last week freely that my daughter was up hollering at like 12:30 in the morning and I was very tired and I was it's going back to my very first episode, right? I am grateful for my daughter. She is an amazing sleeper. Generally, I'm not mad at her for being awake, but I was frustrated because I was really tired and she was screaming and we were trying to deal with that. And I felt the stress coming on in headache form. And so that can be something, not necessarily that I was angry, but I was feeling frustrated. And right. And so that can come into the play as well. So have you ever like started to recognize like that stress headache feeling? Right. So it's important to be able to recognize what those warning signs are so that you can, before you start throwing things, which some of us might be throwing things at whatever age, not just a 3-year-old, grown people throw things in anger, right? That's not just special to toddlers or three-nagers. I think that made me laugh the first time I heard it, three-nager. Anyway. So the more that we can recognize the things that are happening, that are going on in our body, the less likely we are to be reactive and the more likely we are to be responsive to a situation that is causing us anger, frustration, hurt, sadness, whatever it might be. And so those are just some of the warning signs. I want you to think about kind of the things that you recognize, like, oh yeah, when I do this, I know that's coming, or that often is what follows. So awareness, intention, mindful, right? Being reflective of what is going on. That's why mood trackers are so helpful for us, right? If you've had an opportunity to triage what happened, no, not triage is before. What is after when you do, I'm thinking like morbidity, mortality conference. That's not what we're looking for, but whatever, I'm sorry, whatever the word is I'm looking for, when you go back, y'all are probably screaming into your phones like, Meg, this is the word. I can't remember what it is. But when you have an opportunity to go back and look at and kind of figure out what happened, that's what's so helpful with mood trackers. Because if you have an event where you were throwing books at the door, we'll use my son as an example, and say what was going on, what sparked it, what was the activating event? Was that a one-time thing? Was it something that was on and on and on and finally caught up to me? What was going on right before I started throwing books? What might I be able to do differently next time? That's why mood trackers are so helpful. I know some people are like, this is stupid. What am I going to do with this? It's so funny that people who I feel are the most resistant to doing a mood tracker are often, not always, because we don't always have one thing. I feel like they are often the ones who are like, oh my gosh, I thought this was so stupid that you were asking me to do this. And look, every time this happens, that happens, or every day at this time, or when I'm doing that, I have a lot of examples, but I can't obviously just be telling you client information, but there are so many examples of a time where people are like, yeah, didn't think that was going to work. Here we are. So, yeah, that can be very helpful to be aware of in that mood tracker space, recognizing what your warning signs are so that you can not explode and react, but instead respond. So it's important to think about kind of the lifelong habits that we've built. I'm 37, right? Or depending on whenever it is that you listen to this, obviously you listen every Tuesday as soon as this drops. I do actually. Hi, Jay. She listens to this sometime around 2:00 in the morning when she pumps. So I know she's listening to it. And then of course, some of you are in other time zones. So You might hear it right when it comes out as well. And then some of you might hear it next year when I'm 38 or when I'm 58, because we'll obviously still be doing this podcast. So I've got 37 years of doing things, and habits are difficult to break. So it's important for us to recognize what those habits are so that we have the opportunity to change them slowly, incrementally. Rarely do things change overnight. Rarely do we recognize something. Oh my gosh, I've been doing this my whole life. I'm going to stop doing it. And do you stop doing it? Right? Or I've been doing this for months. I didn't even really realize it. Like, I'll tell you all, I had a really long bout of binge eating. I was hitting up that drive-through daily, you all, Monday through Friday at least. I was hitting that drive-through. Not good. Was really not in a great space. Obviously, got to talk about it, get it out, work on it. But I wasn't even necessarily recognizing the pattern. I mean, obviously, I know that I'm in my car and I'm driving to Taco Bell, McDonald's, anyway. Like, I know that I'm driving. It's not like, what is that? Highway hypnosis. It's not that, but it's just recognizing the pattern. It's like, I did it today and it's not that big of a deal because I was hungry and then I really sounded good at home. So I went and got this instead. And then the next day, but then I look back on it and I'm like, that was like 5 out of 5 work days, 4 out of 5 work days that I was doing that. My husband's like, you did what? No, I'm kidding. Hi, Austin. And so it doesn't have to be something that you've done for 37 years. It can be something that you've done for 37 days, but it's a habit and it is hard to break. So recognizing those things, similarities of things that you've been doing in the past, things that maybe you've learned from other people. This is not like blame your mom moment, because let's not go there. We might go there one day, but time for you to talk about with your therapist, I guess. But what family members do you have that, how do you recognize, like, that's how they dealt with anger? And I realize that's what I'm doing too. And figuring out, not necessarily even all the bad things, but what are some things that you recognize? Oh yeah, I recognize my mom, when she gets angry, she does this, and I really seems to work for her. And I'd like to try to replicate that. So while we're pointing fingers at people, can be for a good thing too. So recognizing those similarities of the way that other people are acting, that you've recognized the patterns that have been displayed for you, modeled for you, and recognizing the ways that maybe you want to deviate from that, and the ways that you want to replicate that in your own certain way. So also, anger can be healthy, right? I don't ever want to encourage anybody in any emotion. We're not trying to change our emotions. We're trying to change our relationship to our emotions. Be curious, not judgmental. I say that at least once every episode, and often more often. My poor students at school. Oh my gosh. So this is next week is our 8 of 8 weeks. And I know I've said it at least once, and I'll make a Ted Lasso reference or whatever, and they'll all chuckle or politely chuckle when I know they want to roll their eyes, but they're very kind students. They're very lovely and they laugh at my terrible jokes. So, but saying, what is this anger trying to tell me? What is going on? What is happening in the situation, and being mindful of that versus being judgmental and getting rid of the anger. I shouldn't be angry. There's that should word, right? Don't should on yourself. So recognizing that sometimes anger can be healthy. Like when you get mad about something and it amps you up and you go and run your fastest mile ever, or you feel that creative energy from that anger. And so you use it to write that beautiful book that you're working on, or a new chapter, or whatever it might be. It can be very healthy. So not very healthy, but it can be healthy to use that anger in certain ways. I know an idea pops into my mind, something made me very angry, and I opened up an email and I wrote that email. And man, it was paragraphs. I didn't put anything. Don't put the name in the subject or in the to. You might accidentally hit send. That person didn't need to hear what you wanted to say. You were just typing it to them in the world. Don't put their email address in the to, or like your computer might crash, or I don't know technology. Y'all know, I don't know. But writing that email out made me feel so much better. And then I deleted it and I was like, wow, that was a productive use of my anger in terms of a productive way of dealing with that. Not necessarily that anything was accomplished, but it helped me to feel like I got through the emotion and then was able to move on. So being able to recognize healthy ways of dealing with your negative emotion, with your anger, and then sometimes being able to be productive as a result of that can help you achieve something, whether it be a physical task, whether it be, like I said, something creative, harnessing that anger and using it towards the better good for yourself or for others. So it can sometimes be. And again, I want to encourage not changing the emotions, changing our responses to the emotions. That is number one right there. So we want to make sure also that we're encouraging healthy expression, because when we shoulda, coulda, woulda, I shouldn't feel this way, and we just pretend like that, we're just building resentment. That it's so counterproductive. The expression of like sweeping it under the rug until someone trips, right? Like you're just sweeping it under the rug, sweeping it under the rug. Eventually that's piling up and someone's going to trip over it, metaphorically speaking. Or trip over you when you kick them and make the, because you've had a negative response. So we don't want to not express anger. We don't want to pretend like it doesn't exist. We don't want to build resentment and let the pressure cooker example, right? Like you got to vent that pressure cooker, right? We'll talk a little bit about when do we let it go? When do we be assertive? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but recognizing the times that we do want to let things go and we do want to in a healthy way, vent that pressure cooker. Through words, actions, expressive art, singing in the car, singing in the shower. I mean, many healthy ways of expressing your anger, but you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that is healthy and intentional. So we talk about different ways of expressing it too. So we talk about escape, express, explode. So you can escape by burying your feelings, ignoring it, avoiding the situation, avoiding the person, cutting them out of your life, which, I mean, if that's, I'm not above a boundary. Y'all know that. I know they're not fun to set. They're not fun to have them set on you. Obviously, if you were enjoying taking advantage of somebody and they finally are like, I'm not gonna let you take advantage of me anymore. That's unfortunate for you, but also let's be kind. Anyway, so talking about escape, express, explode. Sometimes we can bury the thing. I talked about, sweeping it under the rug. Not really a healthy way of dealing with that. Expressing it, problem solve. I'm all about solution focused. We can sit and yell at each other, or we can about all the things that we've done and the wrongs and the this and that, or we can say, okay, clearly we need a new plan. This is not working. What are we going to do moving forward? And that's what solution focused therapy is all about, is not talking about the problem. It's talking about what the new plan is. So recognizing that I have this goal, my goal is for us to interact harmoniously regarding this topic. What are we going to do that's going to help encourage that to happen? Problem solving, negotiation, compromise. I know some people are, that's difficult. Where are some things that I can loosen up? Where are some things that I need to stand firm? And the same for the person that you're dealing with. Where can we kind of try to meet in the middle some way on what certain things? So that's expressing that. And then of course, exploding, not our healthiest choice. Blowing up, physical aggression, again, throwing those books against the door. Y'all should have seen it. I don't want to take a picture of it, but like for my conversation purposes here, I wish I would have taken a picture, but I don't, because it's not something that I like want to look back on my time hop next year and be like, oh yeah, that day that my son threw all those books at the door. There were so many books. He was so angry because he was so sad. Physical response to aggression. That is not the way that we want to get our anger out. And of course, obviously, like I said, we went in and took care of it. I don't want you all to think that we just left him in there. We did, but venting that, but we don't want to do it in an exploding way. We want to do it in a healthy and expressive way. So we talk about kind of like the decision tree or the decision idea, right? So do we want to let it go, or do we want to be assertive? You have a friend who is always late. The first time they're late, right? We let it go. We say people are late. Traffic happens, whatever it might be, accidents, forgot I needed to get gas. My dog got sick on the carpet. Heaven forbid, y'all. Heaven forbid. Is he in here? I think my puppy's in here somewhere. Oh, there he is. Hi, puppy. Anyway, don't you get sick? But yeah, so things happen, right? And then when you recognize that somebody's consistently late, that's when you might want to take the assertive route, right? Like letting it go, really genuinely talking it through with yourself and saying, I'm gonna let that go. And then when it consistently happens, saying like, I feel disrespected, and maybe we can talk about why I feel frustrated. Of course, I'm empathetic to your situations, but also there are consequences. I'm starting to feel resentful. I'm starting to feel ignored. My time's not as valuable as yours, whatever that may be. So, and that's just one example. There are a lot of examples that we could use, but it's figuring out kind of like, I guess, pick your battles, figuring out between when it is important to let it go and when it is necessary to say something. And again, all of this comes back to being mindful, because you're identifying what's triggering to you. You're aware, you're tracking your moods, you're aware of what it is that's setting you off. You then go into decision making. Do I need to say something? Can I give somebody grace? Like, you're allowed to be angry and also give somebody grace. Like, this is frustrating to me because we missed the movie, we missed whatever it was we were supposed to be doing, or whatever it might be. You're allowed to be frustrated by that, sad, hurt, as a result, angry, secondary emotion. And also, I don't want this person to be upset as well. I think we really struggle with that dissonance, right? Which, sitting with the tension of yes and, yes, I'm upset and I don't need to say anything. And that's okay. Both of those things can be true. And we really struggle with that as humans, of like, no, everything needs to be one thing and that's it. But rarely is anything just one thing. So, so that's really important too. The anger decision sheet that we talk about, of letting it go, acting assertively. So kind of a short one today, but I did want to just go through and talk about anger. I'd love to hear from you all. Give me some ideas of, like I said, some ideas of things that if you ever feel angry just for the sake of being angry, and it's not really upon reflection, maybe as a result of another emotion, I'd love to hear about that, because I'm always looking to learn and be smarter and know more things, and experience the world through other people's viewpoints. Yeah, but that's it. So again, mindful, intentional, encouraging y'all to find those mood trackers, write it down, put it in your diary, put it in your calendar, get an app, recognizing those things, recognizing that we don't go from 0 to 100. Rarely do we go from 0 to 100. Often it's been a buildup, either over the course of the meeting that you're sitting in, something's getting you frustrated, or persistent interactions with a person over weeks, months, years of working with that person, or being in some sort of other relationship with them. And then figuring out how it is that we want to best express that emotion. I look forward to hearing from you all about anger and anything else. Of course, I really appreciate from my last episode was from a couple of you had requested like progressive muscle relaxation conversation. So that's where that stemmed from. So always feel free to shoot me some DMs. My email, all of that is available. Remember to be curious and not judgmental.